Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Whether or Not. I'm your host, Stuart Dougherty, and I'm joined by my sweetheart co-host, Jimmy Wendolek. We have a great show for you this week, including a forecast from Bryan, Michigan, and a feature from Caroline Castora recapping the weather in some of our spring break vacation spots.
Excited to see the forecast for what looks like a warm weekend across the region. But first, we have to get through nature in the news. What stories do you have for us this week, Stuart?
Well, I have stories about the new weather satellite that launched earlier this month and a breakthrough in rail transportation. How about you, Jimmy?
This week, I have stories about sleeping sharks and some increasingly pesky pollen. And with that, let's get into nature in the news. Unless you are a bee, you probably don't like the sight of pollen on a spring day. But it appears that the amount of pollen is increasing and that allergy season is starting even earlier. A study states that the start of allergy season was once around St. Patrick's Day, but over time has moved closer to Valentine's Day and doesn't seem to be stopping there. Pollen season could start 20 days earlier by the end of the century, with the amount of pollen skyrocketing around the United States. Most researchers attribute the changes in allergy season to changes in our climate, and the effects of these changes are being felt by millions of Americans. 40% of American children, including myself, suffer from pollen allergies, and increases in pollen could make breathing more difficult for the 25 million Americans dealing with asthma.
In a previous Nature in the News story in September, I talked about how a mining operation in Australia uses battery-powered trains to transport mined resources. Recently, a new company is joining forces on another rail transport first. Fortescue Metals Group is working with the United Kingdom's William Advanced Engineering to create the first Infinity train. The Infinity train will be the first train that will not need to stop for fueling. On a standard American locomotive, there are 3 brakes to slow or stop a train. They are the independent brake, the main brake, and the dynamic brakes. The group plans to use the dynamic braking to power the train. To move a train, electricity runs through the traction motors to generate movement. To stop, the independent brake and the main brake push air onto brake shoes to rub against the wheels to use friction to stop. Dynamic brakes, however, work differently. The wheels of the locomotive will produce its own resistance by generating electricity in the traction motors. The newly generated electricity is transported to the back of the locomotive's hood and is burned out as heat. Dynamic braking is mainly used when descending down grades like the Allegheny Mountains at either St. Patrick or Horseshoe Curve. The venture will use the electricity developed by the dynamic brakes and use the electricity to recharge the batteries of the locomotive. The train ideally will be pushed down the grade by 34,000 tons of mined resources, recharge its battery as it descends via the dynamic brakes, and after it makes its delivery, it will pull the empty cars back up the grade to the loading zone at the mine from the electricity stored in the batteries. This is one of Fortescue's plans to become eco-friendly by 2030.
People love to lay down for a good afternoon nap, and apparently some sharks do as well. It's been long thought that sharks do not sleep because they need to swim to keep oxygen-rich water flowing through their gills. But Australian scientists have recently documented a species of shark dozing off. The researchers analyzed the metabolism and posture of 7 small sharks over a 24-hour period. When the sharks were resting for 5 minutes or longer, there would be a noticeable drop in their oxygen consumption, a sure sign of sleep in other animals. Additionally, as the sharks fell asleep, they would get closer to the ground and assume a flatter posture than normal. And while humans always sleep with their eyes closed, many sharks keep their eyes open. 38% of sharks keep their eyes open while sleeping, even at night, making it more difficult to identify when the sharks have actually fallen asleep. Scientists do warn that these results will most likely not directly apply to larger sharks such as great whites, as draught-board sharks, the ones used in the study, are manually able to pump oxygen through their gills even while stationary.
On Tuesday, March 1st, 2022, NASA launched GOES-T into space. The Geostationary Orbiting Environmental Satellites mission is to collect surface and upper atmosphere data, such as cloud temperatures and heights, like its predecessors. However, newer technology will help GOES-T track better images of lightning and wildfires. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration wants to use the data to keep with its mission to protecting life and property. On Tuesday, the 14th, the satellite reached an orbiting altitude of over 22,000 miles. As a result, NOAA changed the name of the satellite to GOES-18. It will replace the GOES-17 satellite. Due to a mechanical failure, the data receiver tool, some of the infrared images collected were a bit messy. GOES-17 also goes as GOES West, as is mainly focused over the western half of the contiguous United States. GOES-18 is still moving into place and will become GOES West in early 2023. One more satellite, GOES-U, will launch in 2024.
Hello everyone, Brian Michigan here for your Central Pennsylvania forecast. Now the past week or so here in Pennsylvania has been an absolutely gorgeous one with beautiful above average temperatures across the week, and that looks to remain as we head into parts of this weekend. However, things get a little bit unsettled with our weather when it comes to early in the weekend. We'll get to that in just a moment. We're going to start out with Friday. You can see this high pressure sitting off to our south and east. That's going to be pulling in a lot of that warmer air off from the south. Some areas in Pennsylvania could be sitting in the 70s for your daytime high temperatures on Friday, upper 60s as you head northwest into those areas of the state. Off to our south and west, you can see this low pressure system taking shape, which is giving a lot of rain off to these areas west, and even some mixed precipitation leading to some maybe sleet or some freezing rain and snow off towards Wisconsin. This is going to be moving into our neck of the woods as we head into Friday night and into Saturday. Speaking of Saturday, it looks to be an absolute washout for many areas off towards the north and east part of the country. You can see the huge expansive rain. It's going to be moving its way across the state on Saturday along with this cold front. So it's going to be warm on Friday, but as we move into Saturday, temperatures are going to take a slight dip thanks to that cold front. And after the storm passes, it's going to move off to our north and east, and on Sunday left with a little bit of residual showers from the system, especially areas of western portions of Pennsylvania, and some lake effect rain showers as you head off towards areas like New York. First, I want to recap this weekend. Friday sitting at 71 degrees as your high temperature, mostly sunny skies. Looks to be an absolutely beautiful day to maybe go take a hike, go take the kids to the park, or if you're a Penn State student, you could be playing hooky on Friday, getting your weekend started early. Friday night, 51 degrees as your low with those rain showers continuing, or starting. Rain showers are starting on Friday, and then into Saturday, that's when the real washout really starts to take place. 62 degrees as your high temperature. And then on Saturday night, that's when the rain showers will be departing. However, they will be continuing for areas in the western areas of the state, especially as we head into Sunday as well. Partly sunny skies with a temperature of 52 degrees. Don't go anywhere, because up next we have a feature by Caroline Castora on the weather we experienced over spring break.
This past week, our Whether or Not team had spring break. We spread out across the country, going to the beach, the National Curling Championship in North Dakota, or just home. While we were away, we experienced a variety of weather, so I'm going to break down what happened to us this week. I went home for break to Plano, Texas, over 1,000 miles away. Texas is known for wild weather, and this week was a roller coaster. I experienced high temperatures, low temperatures, rain, and even sleet. Instead of a nice poolside spring break, I had to bundle up and away some days. The average high temperature for March is 77 in Plano, yet only one day last week met that threshold. The major event I experienced was a pretty well-defined cold front on the 6th. I was outside walking my dog, and I felt the blast of cool air as it moved through, and then rain followed. The front wasn't severe in my area, but up towards Arkansas, Missouri, and Kentucky, they experienced severe weather. This same front brought severe weather to Pennsylvania the next day. State College experienced record-breaking heat, thunderstorms, and snow all within 1 week. Dana Osgood started off in State College with the snow, but then traveled to Florida.
I flew down to West Palm Beach, Florida, meaning I flew into Palm Beach International Airport from Newark. We had a little bit of a rough ride getting there and getting back due to high winds both ways, but high winds especially on the way back. But while I was in Florida, we experienced some above average temperatures while I was there as well. But the main story was the thunderstorms that came through. There was periods of usually around 45 minutes with extremely heavy rain, lightning, and thunder as well. So that was really interesting, except for the fact that I did get caught at an outdoor restaurant in one of those. So that wasn't as fun, but I got to stand underneath the overhang and it was warm enough that I didn't really mind. But there was a lot of really interesting weather going on in State College while I was down in Florida. It was kind of fun to see that State College was getting snow and I was in almost 80-degree weather. But I did return to snow. There was actually, as I was driving back, a pretty heavy band of snow as I was about 10 to 15 minutes away from campus. So luckily it wasn't too much of a major impact for me. But overall, it was definitely an interesting trip weather-wise.
Brian Michigan went home to Brick, New Jersey over break. He experienced straight line winds while he was home. Jimmy competed at the College Curling National Championship over break. He experienced the coldest weather out of all of us.
So this week for spring break, I went to Fargo, North Dakota to compete in the College Curling National Championships. And curling's an ice sport, but Fargo is one of the only places I've ever been where it's warmer on the ice than it is outside. It was just downright cold the entire time we were there. Temperatures were in the teens when we got there on Thursday, and that wasn't even the coldest it would be. Highs on Friday were only in the single digits, and lows got all the way down into the negative teens with a pretty high wind gusts as well. We also had a snow squall move through on Friday night, but that was really the only precip that we dealt with throughout the entire trip.
I hope you had a great spring break like we all did. For Whether or Not, I'm Caroline Castora.
Penn State student meteorologist Brian Michigan back at it again for the extended forecast. We're going to take a quick recap of your weekend. Friday starting out beautiful, mostly sunny skies, temperatures into the 70s for many areas of the state, dipping down to only 51 degrees overnight. And as we get into Saturday, that's when the washout really starts taking shape. Rain throughout much of the day Saturday and even into Saturday night. High temperature at 62 with the low dipping into the 30s after that cold front passes. Sunday, highs getting back into the 50s, and the rain is going to be departing, luckily, from that system. Maybe still some residual showers off towards the western areas of the state. As we get into next week, though, starting out dry for Monday and Tuesday, things get a little bit unsettled with another low pressure system taking shape as of now for Wednesday and Thursday. Drying out as we approach the next weekend on Friday. Temperatures starting out well above average. However, as we move throughout the week, temperatures get near average for this time of year. Coming up next is your quiz answer.
Thank you, Brian. And here is your whiz quiz question. What is the average amount of precipitation received in State College, Pennsylvania during the month of March? Is it A, 3 17/100ths of an inch, B, 3 38/100ths of an inch, C, 3 56/100ths of an inch, or D, 3 88/100ths of an inch?
And the correct answer is B, 3 38/100ths of an inch. Seems like we are already on our way to reaching that number thanks to some of the winter storms we had earlier this month.
Absolutely. And by the looks of Brian's forecast, we could get even closer to that number this weekend.
Well, that's all we have for this week's edition of Whether or Not. We thank you all for tuning in and hope to see you again next week. Until then, I'm the sweetheart Jimmy.
And I'm Stuart. Have a great week.